Hey, it's Tiffani Thiessen. I'm going to talk about a family favorite, my beef and mushroom stroganoff with Cappy, Beyond the Plate. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you're listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. Just the Plate is a short segment where chefs describe a dish or a recipe that is meaningful to them. Now, we usually have the chef seasons of Beyond the Plate, and of course, this is a celebrity season, so we're going to change things up a little bit, yet keep them kind of the same. So for this celebrity season, these guests, some of them have a cookbook, some of them have a restaurant they're involved with, some of them just love to cook at home. So they're going to share a dish that is meaningful to them. I've actually cooked most of these dishes from the Just a Plate episode, so I encourage you to go back to previous season 1, season 2. There's some excellent recipes in there. And we've been receiving a lot of really cool messages from people that have also gone back and listened to these Just a Plate episodes and made these recipes at home. So last week, you heard from Tiffani Thiessen. She's an American television and film actress. She was on Saved by the Bell, Beverly Hills 90210, and plenty more. In 2009, she produced a cooking show for Cooking Channel Food Network titled Dinner at Tiffany's, which aired for 3 seasons. She's currently on a Netflix series called Alexa and Katie. She recently published her first cookbook called Pull Up a Chair. So if you missed last week's episode with Tiffani, please be sure to check that out. But for now, beef, mushroom, stroganoff. This is funny because stroganoff is actually one of the first dishes that I made in a production kitchen when I was in culinary school. I actually love beef stroganoff done right, and I love when a restaurant kind of makes their modernized or updated version, I should say, take on it, and that's exactly what Tiffani did. So her mom used to make this dish for her family when she was a kid, and she hated the dish. She hated the look of it. You'll hear why. So she wanted to modernize it herself. So she shares with us how she makes it as she was cooking another dinner for her family. It's pretty funny. Anyhow, I'm going to stop talking. This is Just the Plate.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm really good.
Okay, so the stroganoff, definitely a favorite of my husband and I's. It's a dish. Are you ready? Or
Yeah. So this is this a beef stroganoff dish?
Yeah, it's the beef mushroom stroganoff, yeah.
Yum.
So a little backstory. This is something that my mom used to make us as kids growing up, but it was more on the traditional aspect, and I never loved it. I actually loathed it half the time. One, because of the appearance. It always reminded me of what they were feeding our dogs, because it was the sour cream base where they would actually blend it into the beef stroganoff, and it just came out with this really disgustingly gray-brown color that no one wants to eat that color. I mean, no one does.
Right.
When I started cooking on my own and as I got older, it was one of those dishes, and there was quite a few actually, but this was one of the first dishes that I wanted to kind of modernize and make it better. So it still had some of the same essence of the things that I grew up with, and the sense of the beef and the flavor and all that. But my mom always put it over noodles, which is much more traditional, and I serve it over polenta instead. It's just much creamier, and I just like it 10 times better. And my husband loves polenta as well. So I mean, who does? Well, I guess a lot of people don't, but and I just do. She always used just the traditional mushrooms. I like to use wild mushrooms, and her beef was always cubed, and so there was just a little bit of like I said, I kind of put a little upscale. I scaled it up a little bit to make it a little more appealing to my eyes and my mouth.
I love it.
So I usually being a mom for sure, and I used to say this on my TV show all the time, that it's okay to take shortcuts every now and then. You don't have to make everything homemade. So like most of the time, polenta, I usually store-bought it or it's boxed, and I just, it's the quick kind on the stovetop. And I spend my time making the stroganoff instead. So that's always usually really, really easy. And then with the stroganoff, of course, you start with your onions and your shallots, and then you add your awesome garlic, and I put a little thyme in there, and then just, of course, always season. My mother always teach me, make sure you season or everything's going to taste bland.
Great tip, great lesson.
And then you add your mushrooms in there. And like I said, I tend to love getting wild mushrooms just because they're beautiful and they have they're just, to me, they have so much more flavor to them, and they look beautiful on a plate.
So I'm curious how you cook your mushrooms, and not to get too detailed and boring, but hopefully not boring if someone's listening to this, because mushrooms are like, people don't realize this, but there's a ton of water in them. So if you cook them over like...
Yeah, and you want to make sure to get all that water out of there.
Got it.
You don't want it to be liquidy, no. So, I mean, it's usually around 8 to 10 minutes, So
you saute your onions and shallots and garlic and fresh thyme, and then you're adding mushrooms.
I saute my onions first. Yeah, correct. The mushrooms are the last thing that I do.
Wait, you're in the kitchen right now? I hear pots and pans.
Yeah, we're prepping dinner.
You're prepping dinner while...
And it's not beef stroganoff. It's actually shepherd's pie, which I think I mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah, so you're prepping shepherd's pie as you're explaining to me how to make beef stroganoff. Okay, I hope you don't screw up your shepherd's pie.
Are you telling me I can't multitask?
No, I this is really interesting. It's like a TV show where you're teaching someone how to cook chili, but you're explaining to them how to make soup. It's fascinating.
It's so true. I mean,
love it.
I'll tell you, I think my multitasking skills went crazy, and I got much better at it as I was doing a cooking show for 3 years, because, before as an actress, like, you would say people's lines that are given to you and written for you, and you hit your mark and you say your lines and then you're done. Like, in a cooking show, you're having to literally physically cook.
Yeah.
Making massive action in front of you, as well as explaining. And then I had all these friends around me, and so I had to make it entertaining, and we're drinking, and like, we're really drinking. We're not fake drinking on TV. We're really drinking. So it was like crazy, but so much fun.
That's not easy. Well, I commend you for your multitasking skills in the kitchen. I could try and keep you on track. So you have onions, shallots, garlic, fresh thyme in the pan. You've added some mushrooms. You like to use a variety of mushrooms.
Season, and then I put in the mushrooms at the very end. I let those go usually around 10 minutes, trying to get all the liquid out of it. And then I transfer that onto the side. So then what I'm going to be doing is putting in the same skillet, so it still has all that kind of oil still in there, and all that, the onions and the flavor and all that.
Are you partial to like nonstick or stainless, or just it depends on what you're making?
It's funny. I do love nonstick. I've gotten really into a couple new brands of nonstick, just because now having children, and it's funny, you do care what you cook with and what you make and what you use and products and food and all that kind of stuff. So I've been really, I've read so much about traditional nonsticks being really dangerous. So I've been really into like the green pan stuff. I actually have a couple of theirs and I really like it. But traditionally I use All Clad. I don't use their nonstick as much. I use their stainless steel.
I use Rachel Ray pans, I should say.
You do? Well, Rachel Ray's never given me pans. Maybe if she has, I would use them.
Something tells me you'll be getting some Rachel Ray pans soon.
I love it. Anyways, okay, so you throw in the sirloin, the meat, into the same pan that I was just doing all the sautéing of the veggies. And I keep, because I slice them thin. So that was the thing that I changed from my mom. My mom always made these huge cubes, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time it was overdone. I slice it thin. And a lot of times, if I'm specifically going to the grocery store to make this dish, I'll just have them slice it for me, just to make it, even easier, and it's just ready to go. I can just throw it right in. And it's like 1 to 2 minutes per side. And then we're going to do the fancy, and we're going to get that brandy in there and get all that flavor. We scrape up all those bits on the pan, and we get that broth going. And that's when I get my spinach going. And we get the spinach, really kind of steamed up and wilted and pretty and dark green. And then I return the mushrooms and the meat to the pan. After that, and then you're good to go, a little more seasoned. And like I said, I actually serve it with the polenta, which I just like so much better. It looks prettier too.
So are you finishing it with any cream-based, I feel like traditional...
No, so all I do, so I wanted to stay away from how normally you would throw the sour cream in there afterwards and you'd mix it all up and it looks like dog food, okay? So literally I garnish it with a dollop of sour cream on top.
Ooh, nice.
And then I definitely put a little parsley and I add a little lemon zest as well.
Excellent. So that's
a little brightness.
That's your stroganoff. And can people find this in your cookbook?
Yeah, they totally can find it in my cookbook. Pull up a chair.
Awesome.
It's been out for a few months now, which is crazy. I think that's been the funnest part of having a cookbook now, is seeing people make your dishes. And like with social media now, it's so immediate. You're getting to see people create your dish, and everybody has like their own little individual spin on it, and it's been really fun to watch. People have been inspiring me like to do something slightly different with some of my recipes, which has been kind of fun.
That's great.
That's the thing too. Like I collect so many cookbooks, and I love watching cooking shows when I get a chance, and it's all about being inspired in the kitchen. I love it, from travel to cookbooks to other people to restaurants. Like it's fun.
I agree. And people are going to hear this and they're going to cook from it, I promise. And I will let you know and give you a heads up when someone's like, I listened to that episode.
Oh, yay. Well, next time we'll talk about the shepherd's pie that I'm making.
Yes.
Not the stroganoff that I was talking about.
Sounds fantastic.
That'll be in the next book, hopefully, right? We're very
Absolutely.
Traditional people here. We like old school recipes. I love it. It's just the food I grew up with, you know?
Yeah, modernizing that comfort food. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time again. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome, honey. Yeah, of course.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, honey.
Okay, bye. Find more on Tiffani Thiessen by Googling Tiffani Thiessen. I'm kidding. At TiffaniThiessen.com or on social media at Tiffani Thiessen. This episode was produced by myself, along with Ian Cohen and Joel Yeaton. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com. Beyond the Plate is on Twitter at BT Plate Podcast and Facebook. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. Thank you for listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.